So, I mean, this is a much bigger problem than I think people have realised.
All of this has been extremely damaging for the royal family. It's described.
It's the loss of the privilege that goes along with a royal title. That's really the most significant one, is the loss of his home. So
this is a prince who had, until all this stuff happened, he was decorated. His military career.
No one in the royal family likes him. He's made a lot of enemies on the way up. I don't think anyone in the palace likes him.
The man who once lived in a 30-room mansion is now secretly packing his belongings into lorries under cover of darkness. And where he's headed next? Well, that's where this story takes an extraordinary turn that nobody saw coming. Former Prince Andrew's world has been shrinking for years, but what's happening right now behind the gates of Royal Lodge represents something far more dramatic than anyone realized. According to insiders, a remarkable operation is currently underway, one that involves royal household trucks arriving at night, storage facilities filling up with decades of possessions, and a destination so modest that sources are calling it a shoebox. This isn't just about a change of address. This is about the complete dismantling of a life that once epitomized royal privilege, and the details emerging from Windsor are nothing short of astonishing. For years, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has clung to Royal Lodge, the sprawling Windsor estate that became both his sanctuary and, ultimately, his prison. The property, with its 30 rooms and extensive grounds, has been his home since 2003. But that era is now coming to an abrupt end, and the way it's happening tells us everything about how far he's fallen from grace. Sources close to the situation reveal that royal aides have already begun the mammoth task of emptying Royal Lodge. But here's where it gets interesting. They're doing it under extraordinary secrecy. Royal household lorries have been arriving after dark, loading up Andrew's possessions and transporting them to Crown Estate storage facilities. The operation has been described as less of a house move and more of an excavation. Why such secrecy? Well, the answer lies partly in the sheer scale of what they're dealing with. Andrew, it turns out, is what insiders delicately call a natural hoarder. Room after room of Royal Lodge is reportedly stacked with documents, photographs, and personal collections accumulated over decades. Some anterooms are said to be filled to the ceiling. We're talking about 80% of his belongings needing to go into storage or be disposed of entirely. But there's another reason for the darkness and discretion. This isn't just any house move, it's the physical manifestation of Andrew's complete removal from royal life. Every box loaded onto those trucks represents another piece of his former existence being quietly erased.
Prince Andrew never really leaves the news, but there's been a sort of tsunami of coverage over the last couple of weeks.
He says accusations about him have become a distraction from the royal family.
He's living in disgrace. He was stripped of his royal duties, and part of that is he's not really being paid by the monarchy anymore because he doesn't complete any royal duties.
To be simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with no letters after his name, no styles before his name, and to lose those military connections as well will really sting.
He doesn't sort of think of anyone except his own personal interests. He's found it so hard to make any sort of apology or to show any sort of contrition.
The destination for Andrew himself is perhaps even more revealing than the method of his departure. He's reportedly heading to what sources describe as a small holding on a remote part of the King's Sandringham estate in Norfolk. The contrast couldn't be more stark. From 30 rooms to what's being called temporary accommodation, so modest that even those familiar with royal properties are raising eyebrows. Now, let me be clear about what temporary means in this context. This isn't a brief stopover while renovations are completed elsewhere. Sources suggest Andrew will be in this modest property for months, possibly longer, while a larger property on the Sandringham estate undergoes extensive work. But even that eventual home, we're told, will be significantly smaller than Royal Lodge. There's no scenario here where Andrew emerges with anything resembling his former lifestyle. The location itself is telling. Sandringham, while a royal estate, is about as far from the center of royal life as you can get while remaining on crown property. It's remote, it's private, and perhaps most importantly, it's out of sight. The exact location of Andrew's new home is being kept secret, but sources confirm it's in a particularly isolated part of the estate. Here's where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. Andrew reportedly wanted Wood Farm, the 5-bedroom cottage where Prince Philip spent his final years. It's a property associated with dignity and quiet retirement, but according to multiple sources, there's been serious debate about whether that would place Andrew too close to the rest of the family. Too close. Those two words speak volumes about Andrew's current status within the royal family. We're not talking about physical proximity here. We're talking about visibility, about the discomfort his presence creates, about the ongoing challenge of managing someone who's become, in institutional terms, a problem without a solution.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been stripped of the last of his royal titles in a final blow for the former royal.
He's entitled to do what he wants, and maybe there's some plausible explanation.
He's placed as protection officer, paid for by the taxpayers, in a difficult position.
Ever-evolving soap opera, that is, of course, what's happening over at Royal Lodge.
This is full disgrace and pretty much unprecedented as far as we can see.
He's been offered a palace in Abu Dhabi. He has a lot of protectors and friends there. His great play place was Thailand. That's another option. That's where he used to go and have fun.
The rental arrangements that allowed Andrew to live at Royal Lodge have long been controversial. He was paying what's known as a peppercorn rent, essentially nothing, for one of the Crown's most prestigious properties. When this became public knowledge, the outrage was immediate and sustained. The Public Accounts Committee even wrote to the Crown Estate demanding explanations for these sweetheart deals given to royals. Now, as Andrew prepares to leave, he won't receive any compensation for surrendering his lease early. The Crown Estate, which has historically been a mechanism for providing generous accommodations to royal family members, appears to be drawing a line. The days of 30-room mansions for minimal rent may be coming to an end, at least for those who've fallen from grace. But perhaps the most revealing aspect of this entire situation is what might happen next. Friends of Andrew have told various sources that he's unlikely to remain in Norfolk full-time. In fact, there's increasing speculation that he may leave the United Kingdom altogether. The Middle East, particularly Bahrain, keeps being mentioned. Andrew apparently has long-established business contacts there, and for many close to him, it represents his most likely long-term destination. Think about what that means. A man who was once second in line to the throne, who represented Britain around the world, who lived at the heart of the establishment, may end up in self-imposed exile. The Sandringham move, rather than being a final destination, might simply be a staging post, a way to extract him from Royal Lodge quietly while arrangements are made for a more permanent disappearance. The king has already done everything within his power to strip Andrew of his remaining titles and honours. The Garter Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, the highest order of knighthood in the UK, has been removed. Military affiliations, patronages, the use of His Royal Highness, all gone. Only the dukedom itself remains, and that only because removing it would require an Act of Parliament. Meanwhile, the physical process of leaving Royal Lodge continues its slow, painful progress. Andrew has reportedly been reluctant to accept help sorting through his possessions, which has frustrated aides trying to manage what should be a straightforward relocation. Instead, it's become a drawn-out operation requiring careful handling of items linked to royal history, professional archiving of certain documents, and the delicate task of deciding what stays and what goes.
Any questions about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's finances emerging over the last 12 months?
He's basically thrown out and banished to the countryside where he will live in Norfolk.
The layers of duplicity and shallowness, this is a new low.
There is a no-holds-barred, warts and all tell-all story waiting to be shared with the world.
Andrew came under scrutiny over his contacts to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
The language being used by sources is particularly revealing. Words like temporary, remote, modest, and phrases like under cover of darkness paint a picture of someone being managed out of sight, rather than accommodated with dignity. This isn't a retirement, it's a removal. Royal Lodge itself has become a symbol of Andrew's fall. Once a visible sign of his status as a senior royal, it became a liability. Too grand, too expensive, too controversial. Reports of its dilapidated state and costly repair needs only added to the pressure. Combined with Andrew's loss of official duties and funding, his departure was inevitable. The only question was when and how. What we're witnessing now is the how, a carefully orchestrated operation designed to minimize embarrassment while maximizing distance. Every detail, from the nighttime removals to the secret location of his new home, speaks to an institution trying to solve a problem as quietly as possible. The broader implications are significant. If Andrew does leave for the Middle East, it will mark the complete severance of his connection to royal life in Britain. No more appearances at family gatherings. No more awkward questions about his presence at public events. No more debates about his proximity to other royals. Just absence. For the monarchy, this represents both a solution and a precedent. How do you deal with a family member who's become toxic to the institution? You don't exile them formally. That would create headlines and controversy. Instead, you make their world smaller and smaller until departure seems like their own idea. The question now is whether this Sandringham arrangement is genuinely temporary or the beginning of Andrew's permanent fade from British public life. Will he settle into quiet obscurity in Norfolk, emerging only occasionally for family events? Will he move to that larger Sandringham property and attempt to rebuild some semblance of a life? Or will he take what many see as the inevitable step and relocate abroad permanently? The smart money seems to be on the latter. A life in Bahrain or elsewhere in the Middle East offers Andrew something Britain no longer can: distance from his past and the possibility of starting over where his history is less immediately toxic. It's exile in all but name, self-imposed but institutionally encouraged. As those royal lorries continue their nighttime runs between Royal Lodge and storage facilities, they're not just moving possessions, they're dismantling a life piece by piece, box by box. The man who once flew helicopters in the Falklands, who walked with presidents and princes, who lived in unimaginable privilege, is being reduced to what fits in a storage unit and a modest cottage. The transformation is complete, from prince to pariah, from 30 rooms to a shoebox, from the heart of the establishment to its furthest edges, and perhaps ultimately from Britain itself to a new life in a place where the weight of his fall might feel a little lighter. This isn't just a house move, it's the physical manifestation of one of the most dramatic falls from grace in modern royal history, and it's happening right now, under cover of darkness, one lorry load at a time. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.